Well, hello folks, this is Jeffey Daugherty back with another episode of the Jeffey Daugherty Show. And my, oh my, it has been an interesting couple of weeks, kicking it off with my appearance on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. Spent 2 hours with him on Sunday, April 6th. An incredible far-reaching interview based upon my book, Apostle Paul Antichrist, which talks about the beginning of the New World Order and how the message of Jesus was hijacked to create that New World Order control matrix that still to this day controls our lives and reaches down into every area of our lives. You can listen to that interview on my website. You can go to Apostle Paul Antichrist or IamNCK.com, and you'll see the Coast to Coast logo. Click on it, and you can listen to both hours of the program, commercial free for the most part, so it makes for a little bit of a quicker and more enjoyable listening experience. Now, there's also a lot of data being downloaded during that broadcast, so we did prepare an Apostle Paul Antichrist fact sheet. You can request that as well on ApostlePaulAntichrist.com or IamNCK.com. We'll be glad to send you that fact sheet. And I've also completed the book of James, compiling it from the original Greek into modern English, omitting any Pauline references, of course, that weren't in the book of James, or also omitting anything that is supporting blood sacrifice. And we'll talk about that more in the days and weeks to come. But I'm in the midst of compiling the entire New Testament in chronological order, James being the first book that was written, without any of the Pauline writings and without any of the references to blood sacrifice. That's going to be called the Testament of Jesus and His Apostles. I am compiling that as we speak. Almost finished with 1 Peter. When we're finished with 1 Peter, which was book number 2 in the New Testament in chronological order, well, we'll make that available on the website as well. We're making those available for free. All you have to do is send me an email, ask me for it. We'll make it available to you. Now, if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at NCKabbalah. If you want to like me on Facebook, it's Jeff A. Daugherty, and I believe there's also a Jeffey Daugherty Show Facebook. And I've met so many great people on Facebook since the Coast to Coast interview. Met even more great people on Twitter since the Coast to Coast interview. Met a lot of great people through the social media. And, you know, a lot of times I joke about social media and how it's kind of silly, but I have met a lot of awfully nice people, and some that I don't know if they're not nice, but they don't care for me too much. You know, I get a chuckle reading the reviews of my book on the sites where it's being sold, and it's either, oh, we really love the book, it's great, or this guy's a devil. There's no in between, and frankly, I didn't expect there to be any in between. So that book is available, Apostle Paul Antichrist. You can get it on ApostlePaulAntichrist.com. And if you buy it between now and for the rest of this week, I'm also including a free ebook about cosmic energy and healing. So that's a nice little bonus if you want to go ahead and take advantage of ordering that book here this week. We're trying to get ready to kick off the NCK tour, planning to have that come out by August 1st. I'm going to jump in an RV, living there, liquidating everything here at my home in Florida, and going on the road, bringing you news and shows from all of the great spiritual places in the United States. That's right, all of them. We're going to go to all of them as long as it takes, if the Lord should tarry. I did just finish compiling the book of James, and there's a warning there about saying I'm going to do this and that, but you should always say, if the Lord wills. So, Lord willing, we will be on the road August 1st. If you know of an RV that someone would like to donate, that'd be fantastic. If you know of an RV that someone would like to sell for a really good price, that would be wonderful. I think fantastic is a little better than wonderful, but wonderful is good too. And if you want us to come to your town, we'll also be doing speaking engagements. We'll be doing book signings, and we'll be doing, again, the live shows from all of the super cool places. So want to go to metaphysical churches and speak, want to go to conferences and speak, and then add that with the live appearances at the different spiritual sites. And I think we've got something that's never been done before, and something that's going to be of great use and help to all of our listeners and to people as a whole and at large. Great times happening here. I just watched the blood moon the other night. I was actually out there for about an hour and a half. I enjoyed it. I was quite taken with it. I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was awesome. I thought it was awe-inspiring. And, you know, I was thinking that back in the days before humanity had the understanding of astronomy and what was going on, what it must have been like to see the moon turn red. I was a little dubious. I'd never seen one before. Didn't know if it was going to turn red. Folks, it turned red. The moon did, in fact, turn blood red. I was looking for the skies to fall and stars to fall from the heavens and the heavens to recede like a scroll, if you know your Matthew 24. But it was very interesting, and you have a lot of very interesting things going on right now in terms of prophecy, and whether you're a Christian or not, whether you believe the Bible or not, we all have a sense of knowing that there's going to be some interesting things happening as this age of human history, you know, winds itself down. And if you're on the side, we're just going to blow ourselves up. If you're on the side of Jesus coming back, if you're on the side of mankind taking over the world for good and turning it up and offering it up to God when He comes back, or if you're in the side of aliens coming back, or even if you're in the side of I forgot what I was going to say, but I thought it was pretty profound. But anyway, whatever your belief is on the end days and the wrap up of this, if you think the astral realm is going to collapse and we'll be going back to the trees if we don't ascend, well, whatever you think, most people will agree and realize and postulate that we're coming to the end of the end. And with the Pope making his staggering statement, that's here on my website at IamNCK.com. There's the Pope. You'll know him. He's the guy in the white. And he makes a stunning, staggering statement. He sends an 8-minute video to American Pentecostal evangelist Kenneth Copeland of Name It and Claim It fame, asking for unity, encouraging unity, loving each other up. Very bromantic moment. It's a true bromance. And then in bromantic fashion and in bromantic response, Mr. Copeland gets up there and launches his own personal love fest towards the pontiff. And I'm okay for unity, but when it has to be unity around truth and unity around love and unity around reality. And when it's unity around control and deceit and liberty squelching religiosity and political socio type situations, I'm not for that. I mean, you can have perfect unity if everybody's a slave, and I'm afraid that may be what they're talking about. So it's very interesting that the Pope, who is a Jesuit, or was a Jesuit, I don't know how it happens, what happens when you become Pope, but Francis was of the Jesuit order. They've long been known as like the Army of Jesus, the very most militant folks within the Catholic Church. And being a 20-year Pentecostal evangelist myself, it can very well be said that the Jesuits are, or excuse me, the Pentecostals are the Jesuits of the Protestant movement. So you have the Catholic Jesuits and the Protestant Jesuits joining together, and I have already formed an organization that is going to facilitate this unity. So folks, they're serious about it. They are serious about it. And I can't help but wonder, the Jesuits, the Army of Jesus, the soldiers of Jesus, the Pentecostals who are by far the most aggressive and most enthusiastic, the biggest zealots, you may say, within Protestant realms. You've got two very, very aggressive, one could even say militaristic factions of the Catholic realm, which represents about 1 billion people, and of the Protestant realm, which if you put them all together represents another 1 billion people. So you've got about 2 billion people. There's not 1 billion Pentecostals, there's 1 billion Protestants. So if the Pentecostals can rile up the Protestants or browbeat them, and if the Jesuit Pope can rile up or browbeat the Catholics, boy, you could get 2 billion people or thereabout militantly aggressive. And then you start getting into things. I remember I used to read about Ellen White's prophecies of Sunday laws and things of that nature and think they were kind of silly. But I'll tell you what, you get the Pope and the Cope together leveraging 2 billion people, maybe you will see some Sunday laws. Maybe you will see some great persecution on those of us that will not go along with the new one world religion. And you know, I'm not a big 11/11 type guy, but I see 11/11 every day. I just glanced down at the video, it was 11/11. So that's very interesting. We'll have to talk about that someday on one of these shows. But the Jesuits are getting together, and the Jesuits are about ready to launch an aggressive evangelization and recruitment drive, and I wonder where that's going to leave those of us that have no intention of going along with them. Very, very interesting. And that brings me to really the main point I wanted to talk about today. And I believe that it is time for another Reformation. It is time for the second Reformation, if you will. And I'm reminded of the words of Thomas Jefferson, who said, I hold that a little rebellion now and again is not a bad thing. He went on to say that he thinks a little rebellion now and again is as necessary in the political realms as natural storms are in nature. And I would add, and I think Jefferson would add too, if you read into his writings, a little rebellion now and then is also necessary and natural within the spiritual realms. And if you'll remember what the first Reformation was, you had the Catholic Church was ruling everything and everyone. It was the dominant religion. It was really arguably the only religion, outside of Islam and Judaism, you could say. So it was the Western religion. It was the religion of Jesus, really. And then there were these guys named the Protestants. They were protesting some things. They were protesting certain doctrines. We won't really go into that much. And this fellow named Martin Luther, who was a priest, monk, he went and he nailed some theses or some, statements up on the door at Wittenberg Chapel. And I remember reading that and studying that when I was a kid and when I was in Bible college. And I thought, wow, he walked up to the church and he nailed something to the door. Well, I've been to Wittenberg Chapel, and the interesting thing is that then, and to some point now, the doors did serve as bulletin boards, if you will. So it wasn't quite as dramatic as we might think. He wasn't walking up, to a door that wasn't used for that purpose and nailing something to it. He basically was just posting his theses on the community bulletin board. And while the act wasn't as rebellious as we might have originally thought, the content certainly was, speaking against things like the selling of indulgences and several other areas about the Catholic Church, which led to the Protestant Reformation. They finally broke off, and you had the Catholic Church, and then you had the Protestant Church. And the Protestant Church has broken off now into more splinters than anyone can name. And basically, if you're trying to understand what a Protestant is, that's anybody that says they are Christian that's not a Catholic. Typically, the Protestants are the born-again ones, the Pentecostals, the Baptists, the Methodists, the Lutherans, the Episcopalians, and everybody else pretty much that's not Catholic is what we would call a Protestant. So that was the first Reformation, breaking away from the Catholic Church. And really, part of that Reformation was, let's turn away from the leading of priests and the Pope, and let's begin to embrace the Bible as the rule of doctrine and practice. And that's a great idea. I'm 100% for following the words of the Bible if we knew that we had the Bible. What we have today in 2014, as I record this, is a collection of now 66 books. There's probably at least that many that were thrown out of it. What we have now is basically a hand-me-down version that was compiled by one group in England that was trying to push their religious agenda. And now we have what Thomas Jefferson is called, and I find this fascinating. I've thought it myself for a long time, obviously not quite as long as President Jefferson felt it, but President Jefferson said that the Bible, as we have it, and he read King James Version just as we read King James Version, which is kind of interesting to think, isn't it? Thomas Jefferson in the 1700s, King James Version came out about 1616. So Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, those guys were reading the same Bible that many of you read. I don't have my Bible within arm's length, but it is a King James Bible. And Thomas Jefferson said this, and I find it fascinating, I find it brilliant, and it is very, very true. Thomas Jefferson said that he said the New Testament is a dunghill. Dung is, you know what dung is? It's excrement, and a hill is a big pile of it. So Thomas Jefferson called the New Testament a steaming dunghill of bad doctrine and teachings of men. And he said our job is to dig through the dunghill and find the diamonds of the true words of Jesus that are hidden within the dunghill. Reminds me of the old story of the little boy who was the eternal optimist. He's in a room filled with horse manure, digging through with a smile on his face. Somebody says, "Son, you realize you're in a room full of horse crap? How could you be smiling?" And he says, "Well, with all this manure, there's got to be a pony in here somewhere." And that's the place that we're at now in 2014 as people that want to believe and understand and follow the words of Jesus. I consider myself a follower of the words of Jesus. I consider myself a follower of the teachings of Jesus, but I am not talking about the Sunday, go to church, stained glass Jesus. I'm talking about the real words that came out of the mouth of Jesus, and I believe they are in the New Testament. Some of the words of Jesus are in what we call the New Testament, but like Thomas Jefferson said, they're diamonds hidden amongst a steamy pile of dung. And I found when you start digging through trying to find the diamonds, you get a bunch of flies buzzing you, and some of them are those biting type of flies. So it's time for us to have another Reformation. First Reformation said we're not going to believe people, priests, popes. We're going to believe the Bible. This second Reformation, the second Reformation needs to say we're not going to believe a Bible that was printed by popes and priests and preachers and politicians. We are going to search, seek out, and hold dear and adhere to the teachings of Jesus. We left the Pope and started searching the Bible because we thought that was the best way to go. Might have been. There's some good arguments for what has happened down through the centuries. We'll talk about that sometime. But now it's time not to be content with the dunghill anymore, and not to be as tolerant of the dunghill as we've been. It's time now to start searching for the diamonds in the dung. It's time to start searching for the diamonds within the dung, and it's also time to start identifying what is diamond and what is dung. On the left hand, we got to say, sorry, this is dung. On the right hand, this is diamond. So all the diamond we're going to keep, we're going to study. All the dung, we're going to throw it away, and we're going to wash our hands of it. It's time to identify dung. It's time to identify diamonds. And right away, all you religious people start hollering and screaming. And I know why you're hollering and screaming, because I used to be a religious person. Because when you start searching for the diamonds among the dung, you start identifying dung, identifying diamonds, who gets to choose? That's the problem. How do you control people? If you can't tell people this is a diamond, this is dung, you're just going to let them decide for themselves? Exactly. We're coming to the place, the Second Reformation is about people that don't need to be told what to believe. It's about people that don't need to hear their truth come from behind a pulpit. It's about people that don't need to hear their truth come out of the mouth of a pope, a priest, a preacher, a rabbi, or whatever they call Islamic clergymen. Emirs is the only one that I can think of. It's about people that say, you know what? Jesus said that I have the kingdom of heaven within me, and I can go straight to the Father or the universe, whatever you call it, / him, her, they. And I don't have to go through these various religious institutions to get my golden ticket punched so I can make it to their version of whatever the paradisical afterlife is. So the idea today is forget the Pope, forget the priest, forget the pastor, forget the rabbi, forget the emir, imam, whatever. Forget those people. And start your own spiritual journey. Wow, what a concept. You mean, Jeff, you want me to search through the New Testament on my own and decide what's dung and what's diamond? Exactly. Jeff, you want me to search through the New Testament and say, oh, this sounds like dung to me, I'm going to throw it out? Exactly. Jeff, you want me to search through the New Testament and say, oh, this looks like a diamond, I'm going to keep it? Exactly. Thomas Jefferson, who wrote the Declaration of Independence, the guy who penned and authored the ideas that brought us many years of political liberty. I think those have long since gone by, at least in the Jeffersonian ideal. But he also wrote a document and gave us an idea of how to find spiritual liberty, because Jefferson said, all these people have been perverting the doctrines of Christ. He said, first of all, Paul was the first and great corrupter of the doctrines of Jesus, and I attempted to sift them apart. So what Jefferson said, here's his prescription for spiritual liberty. You know his prescription for political liberty. Here's the Jeffersonian description for spiritual liberty. Number one, realize that Paul was the first great corrupter of the doctrines of Christ. Number two, sift through the New Testament and get rid of everything that came from the mouth of Paul. And then step number three is realize that even after you've gotten rid of the Pauline dung, and it was all dung. And let me just say this, Scotty Roberts, who you know, if you listen to Coast to Coast, you've heard him. If you listen to and watch TV's Ancient Aliens, you've seen him on. If you follow me on Facebook, you've seen Scotty's posts. He's a good friend of mine and a very brilliant fellow, has a very background similar to mine, and we share a lot of beliefs. Thus, I know that he is, in fact, brilliant. But Scotty asked me, Jeff, what about things like the love chapter? Paul wrote that. How could he be a bad guy if he wrote all that stuff? He said, I believe you, Jeff, but that thing gives me some pause. You know what's funny? Actually, my son, Joshua Daugherty, sent me a link to some Essene writings, which are outstanding. And in part of these Essene writings, Jesus is actually the one that said, love is patient, love is kind. That love chapter that Paul stole and put under his name was actually uttered by Jesus, whose real name is Yeshua, but we're not going to strain you on that right now. There's enough for you to wrap your minds around right now without going down that road. Baby steps. It's okay. Take a deep breath. In through the nose, out through the mouth, and just relax. It's going to be okay. But Jefferson said, get rid of Paul. With what's left, you separate what you take the New Testament, you separate what's Jesus, what's Paul, get rid of everything that's Paul. And then he said, even though Paul's gone, you're still left with a steaming pile of dung. Those are not my words, folks. Those are the words of Thomas Jefferson. He wrote them in the 1820s, and he actually said these words. The New Testament is a pile of dung. I added the steamy. It's the more descriptive. But he said the New Testament is a pile of dung. So you get rid of Paul. You're still left with a pile of dung. And then what do? You sift through the dung, and you find the diamonds, which are the true words of Jesus. Somebody says, well, Jeff, what if we don't come up with the same diamonds? You know what that's called? That's called individual spirituality. You may find something in there that's a diamond to you, and it might be kind of dungish to me. Now, there are diamonds that are just diamonds that are in there, and, you know, that's just is what it is. But there's going to be some things that are diamondish to you that are more dungish to me. And there's going to be things that are diamondish to me that are not so diamondish to you. And there may be some things that I say is dung. And as I go through compiling this testament of Jesus and his apostles, I am throwing some dung out. Some of you might be upset with me, but you know what? I've been doing this for 35, 40 years. And if it smells like dung, if it has the consistency of dung, it's probably dung. I'm pretty confident in my ability to identify dung because I've slung so much dung since I was young. How about that? Just off the cuff. But really, I've been, preached so much crap for so many years. I'm able to pretty well identify it. But if you disagree with me, you can disagree with me, and that's called spiritual individuality. That's called learning at our own way. That's called the kingdom of heaven in you, kingdom of heaven in me, and we, you may be here, I may be here, and we just may not be on the same level, and that's okay. We don't break off and start another group. We just live with each other and love each other. Again, I just compiled James, and he talked very much about loving one another and not judging one another and not looking down on one another and not creating divisions and schisms, but having a big tent where we realize a lot of people are at a different level of camping at any given moment, but we're all going to the same beautiful forest in the end. Silly analogy, but it kind of worked at the moment. So the new Reformation has to be to move from the Bible, learn to sift through the dung that is the Bible. Jeff, you're telling me the Bible's dung. I am telling you the Bible's dung because Thomas Jefferson told you that, and I've studied it enough to know that all you have to do is read anything from anybody that's an objective scholar, and the changes and the controversy and the outright conspiracy and the outright lying and cheating and stealing that has gone on with the interpretation and the translation of the Bible down through the years, unless you have your head planted in the sand, and when you pull your head up, you're la 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 la, unless you just will not receive any truth. You've got to realize that what we have today as a Bible is so circumvented, so convoluted, so messed up that dung is a perfect word for it. Doesn't mean that the Word of God's not in it. It means that there's a lot of other stuff that's not the Word of God that's in it. And I know it's easy for you to believe the Bible is the inerrant Word of God to man. I know it's much easier for you to believe every jot, every tittle, every line. I know it's easier for you to quote, to say, oh, from Genesis 1:1 to Revelation 22:21, the whole thing is the Bible. It's very, very easy to say that. It's very, very comforting to say that. And it's also very, very naive to say that. And you cannot say that with an open and an inquisitive mind. I'm sorry, but the time has come where we have to call dung dung if we're really going to find any diamonds. Do you hear that? You've got to be willing to call what is dung dung if you're going to be able to differentiate it and be able to find some diamonds. And that's what it's time for. A new Reformation. The second Reformation. We threw out the dung of being ruled over by men in dresses. Not that there's anything, some of my friends are men that like to wear dresses, and that's your thing, but you're not going to dictate to me spiritually wearing a dress or not. But we said we're not going to listen to the men in dresses, so we started listening to other men in other dresses, and then they started wearing pantsuits, preachers. But now we're done listening to men, and we're done listening to the words that those same dudes that we reformed from wrote. Think of that. The Reformation, the first great Protestant Reformation, was based on a book that really came through Roman Catholicism, and then our Protestantism is based on a book that is Pauline. It's straight from the Nero-Pauline matrix. And we're saying, oh, we protest, but we still do and practice just about every single thing they do. I mean, Protestants are pretty much Catholics that aren't afraid of holy water. And it's time to realize that we can no longer, in 2014, in the day and the age of true spiritual enlightenment and awakening, continue to depend upon the words of other people or the words of a book that was written by other people. It's time for us to take up the Jeffersonian challenge. That's Thomas Jefferson, not Jeffersonian challenge. It's time to take up the Jeffersonian challenge to rid ourselves of Pauline teaching and then sift through the rest of the dung to find the diamonds, which are the true teachings of Jesus. And here's a little tidbit for you. You won't find all the teachings of Jesus in the New Testament. You won't find all the teachings of Jesus in the Old Testament. There are other sources of wisdom that contain true teachings of Jesus. The Nag Hammadi Gospels, for one. The Gospel of the Holy 12. The Essene writings are tremendous. There's probably some dung there too. Dung being defined as something written by men. But when you put all these things together, you find a true message of enlightenment. And I think you find the true message of enlightenment that Jesus meant for us to receive. So folks, the easy way is gone. It's not the easy way, it's the lazy way. The lazy way is over. True spirituality is not for lazy people. You can be lazy or you can be spiritual. You can't be both. And I'm convinced more and more that you can be religious or you can be spiritual. You cannot be both. Folks, it's time for another Reformation. A little Reformation now and again is a very good thing. So here, take up the challenge. Join me in the second Reformation. You can contact me at IamNCK.com. New website. I think it's super cool. Looks great. You can contact me at ApostlePaulAntichrist.com. New website. Super cool. Think it looks great. Buy the book this week. Get a bonus ebook on cosmic energy and healing. And you can also contact me on Twitter at NC Kabbalah. Contact me on Facebook, Jeff A. Daugherty, or the Jeffey Daugherty Show. And until then, you can also contact me through my website. And I'll be looking forward to speaking with you. I'll be looking forward to talking with you, texting with you, messaging with you. And folks, it's time to start the Second Reformation. And I'm here with you, digging through dung, looking through diamonds. And until then, this is Jeffey Daugherty, as always, wishing you peace and light.